Hello and welcome everybody to today's business support series. We are here today with Sarah with the Oregon Employment Department, and she will be talking to us about Paid Leave Oregon. Take it away, Sarah.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Ambrosic. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an operations and policy analyst with our outreach team for Paid Leave Oregon. I'm not exactly sure how many folks that are going to be in this, but I do like to get an idea, like a sense of who I'm talking to. So I'm wondering if we could go around briefly and everyone could maybe introduce themselves and who that they are with. And I will start it off. It looks like Maria Phillips. I can see you. Do you want to start?
Yes, thank you for actually putting this together, the Chamber of Commerce, and for you to be here. My name is Maria Phillips. I work for Abacus, Yamhill County, and I work in the I'm an employment specialist, but in community supports. And just briefly, I've just used some Paid Leave Oregon, and I'm here because I'm going through some medical, and it helps me understand things better because there's some things that I just don't understand. So this is great. Thank you.
Great. Maria, do you want to pass it over to somebody?
Yes, I'll pass it on to Ria Radine. I see her. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Radine.
Maybe the mic isn't working.
What about Amanda?
Hello, I'm Amanda with J&W CarStar in McMinnville. I just moved here from Ohio and I'm trying to get the lay of the land. So thank you so much for including me. Pass it on to Ron.
Sure. My name is Ron Noble. I'm currently with the church in town. I have another curiosity. I was in the legislature when this bill was passed, so I'm interested in seeing how it's working now that it's been implemented.
Does anyone else want to go next?
I can go next. I'm not on camera, sorry, but my name is Carmen Kirkman. I work with Organic Valley. I've worked a little bit already with the paid leave. We've had an employee use it already, so I'm kind of looking maybe for a little bit more detail and interested if there's any information about how like the three kinds of leave intersect. So, but yeah, I'm just interested to hear what you have to say. Thanks.
I'll go next. I'm Scott Kerman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the executive director of Blanchet House and Blanchet Farm. Blanchet Farm is located in Carlton, where a long-term recovery transitional housing program for men with addiction. And I'm glad to be here.
Does anyone else want to go?
Holly, can we take a try at your microphone again? And I'm Rhonda with the chamber. We're having some mic issues on our end, so Holly's trying to see if she can talk. Okay, it's not working. We're sorry. Again, everybody, if Sarah did welcome questions and she'll do that again, but if you have one, feel free to put it in the chat as well. Okay.
Yeah, and this whole presentation is about 12-15 minutes, and the group is small enough that if you do have any questions, like burning questions while I'm presenting, I'm okay if you want to just interrupt and ask. That's no problem. I actually don't mind that at all because I want to have this engagement and it's just to be casual. And I also just want to make sure I'm getting all your questions because I won't be able to see what's in the chat until after. but I guess we can just go ahead and get started. Thanks for those that introduced yourself. Very helpful. Very good to meet you. I will try to get to your questions that you had prior, but let's go ahead and get started. So just an overview again of what Paid Leave Oregon is. It's for up to 12 weeks of paid time off with an additional 2 weeks for any type of pregnancy-related conditions, okay? And there are 3 leave categories that you can take. So we've got first, probably our most popular right now, it's called family leave. That's to care for a family member with a serious illness or injury. It's also to bond with a new child after birth, adoption, or foster care placement. Now, one of the things to keep in mind, paid leave, we define family as anyone related by blood or affinity. And Senate Bill 999, we just aligned that definition with the Bureau of Labor and Industries so that OFLA and paid leave now have the same definition of what is defined for affinity. We have medical leave, that's to care for your own self during a serious health condition or injury. And that could also include the physical and mental impacts due to miscarriage and stillbirth. And then lastly, we have safe leave. And safe leave is for those individuals who may have experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, harassment, bias crimes, or stalking, okay? Now, Paid Leave Oregon is going to cover most employees who work in Oregon. You may qualify for benefits if you work a seasonal, full-time, or a part-time job. The size of your employer does not impact your coverage as an employee. But here are some things to keep in mind. Paid leave will not cover if you are a federal government employee, if you are participating in a state or federal work training assistance program, if you're an undergraduate or a graduate student that's also in a work study program, you may be a railroad worker or know somebody who's exempt under the Federal Railroad Unemployment Insurance Act. And also Paid Leave Oregon will not cover volunteers. Now, if you are a self-employed individual, you can totally opt into paid leave, and there's a complete overview of what this looks like and how you can do it on our website. Now, lots of questions, OFLA, FEMLA, what about these other, have short-term disability? We do not replace OFLA or FEMLA, okay? We are a completely separate program. The biggest difference between our program and OFLA, FEMLA, the biggest one is that paid leave, it's a paid benefit. So your wages that you make, you're contributing 1% of those wages up to 1% every year. So if you're an employee, you're paying 60% of that 1%. And if you are a large employer, so that's someone that has 25 or more employees, then they're contributing 40% of that 1%. So again, you're paying into this program. It's a paid program if you choose to use it or not, unlike OFLA or FEMLA, which is unpaid. Now, paid leave does allow claimants to use paid leave benefits with other leave benefits. So maybe you have short-term disability, maybe you've got some vacation or some sick leave. We definitely encourage you to talk to your employer, and if you have an insurance provider that you're working with, about utilizing those additional leave benefits. Now, some examples of qualifying events are, like I said earlier, disability due to miscarriage or stillbirth, and this includes both that physical and mental impact related to the loss of a pregnancy. You can use it, again, this is under family leave, to care for and bond with a child in the first year after birth, adoption, or foster care placement, and also to care for a family member with a serious health condition. Some examples that you cannot use paid leave is a non-serious illness, bereavement, or military leave. So currently, you cannot use paid leave for those 3 topics. Now, employees will need to provide appropriate documentation to support the type of leave that they're applying for, okay? And if you go to our website, we have this really amazing guidebook. We have an employee and an employer guidebook, what you need to know, how you need to execute the program, etc. Starting on page 21 of that guidebook gives you a checklist of all the things that you need to have prepared for when you want to apply for Paid Leave Oregon. Now, as I mentioned briefly, we have large employers and small employers, and there's different rules for that. So if you are a large employer, you're defined as having at least 25 or more employees. Your employee size is determined by those payroll reports that you submit, the employer submits, and we determine what that count will look like in April for every single year. Again, the employee count, it's going to include any full-time, any part-time, any seasonal, and maybe some temporary employees, as well as any out-of-state workers that you might have. The way that you can calculate how to get to this employee size is you look at your payroll for the 12th of every month, and then you add it all up and you divide it by 12. That's the most plain language I can put it. But if you go to our website, there's an actual like calculator on how to actually determine what that employee size looks like for you. Now, if you are a small employer, okay, so you have less than 25 employees, and you are paying the employer portion, it's a choice. So if you're a small employer, you're not required to pay the 40% of that 1% of your employees' gross wages. If you're paying, though, that 40%, you may be eligible for an assistant grant to help with the cost of maybe hiring a replacement worker while you have an employee that's on leave, or any other significant wage-related costs. An example is you can get up to $3,000 grant to hire a replacement worker, or up to $1,000 for any type of wage-related costs. And this could be like overtime to maybe some other employees, or maybe you have to do some additional training. There's grants for that. You can get up to $30,000 per year in grants per employer. So just something to keep in mind for those smaller defined employers. Like I said earlier too, contributions, they are percentage of wages that are paid by both the employee and those large employers. Now, every year, the employment department will set what that contribution rate looks like by November 15th. By statute, our rate will never exceed 1% of employee gross wages. It could go down, but it'll never exceed 1%. We just set that rate again recently, and it's still going to stay at the 1% for this next year. The cap has changed, though. We had, I think it was like it went up to $132,900. Now it's increased to $168,600 in wages. So any earnings over that amount are not subject to further contributions. Like I said before, if you're a small employer, you do not have to pay the 40%, but employers, large or small, could choose to pay the employee portion as a benefit to their employees. Now, how do you calculate how much money you're going to receive every week? What we do is there's a whole calculation. I won't get into too technical of it, but one thing to think about, if you go to our website, we have this really nifty benefits calculator. Just pop in what your salary is for last year, and it'll give you an estimate of what that amount would look like. Okay, the minimum amount that you could ever receive, though, is $63.48 a week. That's really looking at somebody that's made the minimum threshold to be eligible for paid leave benefits, which is $1,000. The maximum weekly benefit someone could receive is $1,523.63, so about $1,524. That is the maximum amount someone could receive in a weekly benefit. So you could be making $200,000, maybe you make $1 million a year, I don't know, but the most that you'd ever receive then is $1,524 a week. Now, if you've worked for your employer for more than 90 days, your job is protected while you are on leave. If you come back to leave and maybe the position no longer exists, your employer must put you in a similar position that you were doing before, and it must be at that same rate of pay, okay? So again, 90 days job protection, or after you've worked for your employer for 90 consecutive days, you have job protection when you come back from your leave. Your employer must also keep your healthcare benefits in place, and they can actually require you to continue to pay that same premium cost that you normally would. If you experience any type of discrimination or retaliation from your employer for taking paid leave, you may submit a complaint to the Bureau of Labor and Industries. Oregon Employment Department doesn't manage that piece of it for discrimination or retaliation. BOLI does. Now, what's the employee's responsibility for going out on paid leave, Oregon? Well, the biggest one is you need to let your employer know within 30 days of foreseeable leave. Foreseeable might be like you have a scheduled C-section, you have a planned surgery. You need to let your employer know, okay? Now, things happen. Maybe an unforeseen circumstance has arisen. We ask that you let your employer know verbally within 24 hours and written within 3 days. What happens if, for God forbid, you're incapacitated? You can actually authorize a designated representative to speak on your behalf. There is a form on our website that you can complete and upload in your Francis account when you are applying for benefits. So you can actually have someone speak on your behalf. They can go into your account, they can manage, and they can execute anything that needs to be had while you're incapacitated. Once the employee is on leave, they will be required to notify the employment department if there is any change to your leave status. So maybe you thought your leave was only going to be 8 weeks, but maybe it's extended to 12. You need to let us know right away. Or maybe you went consecutive, so you were like, I'm going to be out for 12 weeks from this time, but now I've kind of changed it. My medical authorized representative has also changed it. We've agreed I can go out intermittently for the next 6 months, et cetera, whatever. Just please let us know because we need to update that claim information. So what's the employer's responsibility through all this? You need to make sure that you have what's called a model notice poster available somewhere within your work site. Now, for those employees that might work remotely, we've had people either snail mail it, maybe they electronically mail the model notice poster, or it's put in a shared drive somewhere, just as long as the employee has access to this, okay? So when an employee goes on leave, okay, the employer, you've received the 30 days notice that they're going on a foreseeable leave. We're gonna send you an information, okay? The employee has applied, and now what's going to happen is you're going to get a message in your Francis account that says, hey, so-and-so has applied for paid leave Oregon. Is this your employee? We call it just like a quick survey questionnaire. You're going to answer yes or no to that. And then we're also going to ask you, well, did this employee give you 30 days notice? And you're going to answer yes or no to that as well. If for some reason they didn't give you that 30 days notice for that foreseeable leave, there is a potential penalty of up to 25% of that first weekly benefit amount. So employees, just keep that in mind. If, again, there's foreseeable leave, make sure you let your employer know within those 30 days to avoid any type of potential penalty. We will not be sharing any information about the type of leave, any of your medical records with your employer. However, based off of the employer's internal policy, your employer could ask you, if you're requesting to go on leave, they could ask you, well, what type of leave you're taking, why you're taking that leave, and for how long you're going to be out on that leave. So if that is something that the business wants to reinstate or add into, it needs to make sure that they add that to their internal policy documents. Paid leave Oregon contributions are taken after tax. It's not going to reduce your taxable incomes. The benefits are taxable. So just keep this in mind when you are applying for benefits. You have a choice whether to opt into having taxes withheld. I think it's like 10% federal and 8% state. And you can do this anytime. You can do it at the time that you're applying. Maybe you want to go in later and change your tax ops in or out. You can do that at any time through your Francis Online account. You also can download a paper form, like we still have paper forms for things. You can download that and then you can mail it in to us as well. So self-employed coverage. You are self-employed if you work for your business instead of working for a specific employer, and you report profits from your business as self-employed on your taxes. Again, you're not going to automatically be in this program. You can opt into the Paid Leave Oregon program if you are self-employed. You must meet a minimum of $1,000 in income in the previous year. You would need to supply us with any type of federal and state income tax returns for last year as well. When you apply, there's actually a whole section for that self-employed individual. So that's the section that you want to go to start your coverage. And you also need to agree to pay contributions for a minimum of 3 years. You also need to make sure that you're paying quarterly for those contributions to be eligible for benefits. Again, those contributions are due quarterly, just kind of the similar way on how you're probably already filing your taxes if you are self-employed, and you would do that through the Francis account. What else? That's about it. That is what I've got. We have a monthly bulletin. It gets distributed, I believe it's the 3rd Tuesday of the month. So if you haven't signed up for our bulletin yet, please do so. It gives the latest and greatest information. Also, you can give us a call. I mean, right now, like Mondays and Tuesdays are the heaviest high call volumes, which could be up to an hour of a hold time. So unless it's like burning, I'd probably wait towards the back half of the week. But we are there to answer any questions that you might have. You can email us, or you can actually go to our website. We have a contact us page. You submit an inquiry, and then you'll get a response letting you know, like, hey, we've got your inquiry. We're going to try to get back to you within a couple days. So those are the ways that you can reach out to us if you have any questions. Rhonda, if you want to go ahead and maybe stop recording, then